Good evening, and welcome to Zimwaves TV. We bring you the latest updates and stories from around Zimbabwe. This morning, a disturbing incident unfolded as students from the Zimbabwe National Students' Union, ZNASU, were brutally beaten, tortured, and arrested while peacefully gathered at a privately hired venue for a scheduled meeting. The students were discussing matters pertinent to their association when law enforcement officials intervened forcefully. Eyewitnesses reported severe physical violence and torture before the students were taken into custody. The students' peaceful assembly was conducted in accordance with their voluntary association's constitution, raising serious concerns about the government's commitment to upholding constitutional rights, including freedom of assembly and association. This brutal crackdown on ZNASU students has drawn widespread condemnation from human rights organizations, activists, and international observers. Critics argue that such actions reflect a broader trend of shrinking civic space and increasing repression in Zimbabwe. As the country prepares to host the Southern African Development Community (SADC) Summit, the international community is watching closely, urging the government to respect human rights and democratic principles. Observers warn that continued violations of basic freedoms could tarnish Zimbabwe's image and undermine its standing in the region. The question remains whether the government will heed these warnings and take steps to address the grievances of its citizens. In another story, Zimbabwe's participation in the Olympic Games has come under intense scrutiny due to the disproportionate size of its official delegation. Despite sending only 7 athletes to compete, the country has dispatched an entourage of 67 officials, including an ailing ceremonial vice president. This starkly contrasts China's streamlined approach, where their sports minister did not even make the trip despite having 338 athletes. The public and critics argue that the funds used to send such a large number of officials could have been better spent on sports infrastructure, training facilities, and direct support for the athletes. Many athletes face inadequate training conditions and financial challenges, and this misallocation of resources highlights broader issues of mismanagement and irresponsibility within Zimbabwe's leadership. The decision to prioritize the travel of numerous officials over the needs of the athletes has sparked outrage and disbelief among citizens and sports enthusiasts. With Zimbabwe facing economic hardships and widespread poverty, the extravagant spending on non-essential personnel for the Olympic Games is seen as a glaring example of the government's misplaced priorities. As the criticism mounts, there are calls for greater accountability and transparency in how public funds are utilized, especially in supporting the nation's athletes and sports development. In political news, a heated intra-party dispute has arisen within ZANU-PF, highlighting deep divisions over the party's future leadership. Youth League political commissar Taurai Kandashaya has condemned party spokesperson Christopher Mutsvangwa for his recent comments on Vice President Constantino Chiwenga's succession prospects. Mutsvangwa recently denied that Chiwenga is the presumptive successor to President Emmerson Mnangagwa, who has stated he will not seek a third term and plans to go and rest after his term ends in 2028. Mutsvangwa's comments have sparked controversy, as many believe Chiwenga, who was instrumental in the 2017 coup that brought Mnangagwa to power, had a pact with the president to succeed him. Kandashaya's criticism underscores the deep divisions within ZANU-PF regarding future leadership. Chiwenga, as a military general, played a crucial role in the coup and is seen by many as the natural successor due to his influence and military backing. However, Mutsvangwa's statement suggests that the succession plan is far from settled, raising questions about the party's stability and unity. The absence of a clear succession plan has led to intense speculation and power struggles within ZANU-PF, as different factions vie for influence and control. As Mnangagwa's final term progresses, the lack of clarity on leadership succession could lead to further tensions and internal conflicts, potentially destabilizing the party and affecting its ability to govern effectively. Turning to labor issues, prominent unionist and human rights campaigner Robert Massaroor has been summarily dismissed from his teaching position, sparking widespread outrage and condemnation. Massaroor, who serves as the president of the Amalgamated Teachers Union of Zimbabwe (ARTAZ, announced his dismissal in a post on X, formerly Twitter, highlighting the lack of due process and the broader implications for Zimbabwe's education sector. Today I received a summary dismissal from my teaching post. The letter dated March 30th was pregnant with lies, but because no one accorded me the right to be heard they acted on falsehoods, Massaroor stated. He emphasized his long service to the government since May 2014 and expressed shock and disappointment over the abrupt termination of his contract. Masaror condemned his dismissal, emphasizing the severe shortage of STEM teachers in Zimbabwe and criticizing the government for prioritizing political vendettas over education. He highlighted the critical need for qualified educators, especially in STEM fields, and pointed out that his dismissal exacerbates the existing teacher shortage, ultimately harming students and the education system. Human rights organizations, unions, and educators have rallied in support of Masaror, calling for his reinstatement and condemning the government's actions as unjust and retaliatory. The dismissal of a vocal advocate for teachers' rights and better working conditions raises serious concerns about the government's respect for labor rights and its commitment to improving education in Zimbabwe. Finally, a GoFundMe campaign has been launched to provide financial assistance to the families of the Avondale 79, who were recently arrested for attending a bray. The campaign aims to support the families left struggling after their breadwinners were incarcerated. The arrests, seen as an illegal gathering by authorities, have sparked widespread condemnation and raised questions about the government's increasing suppression of civil liberties. The families of the detained individuals are now facing significant hardships, with many losing their primary sources of income. The GoFundMe campaign seeks to alleviate some of the financial burdens these families are experiencing by providing funds for basic necessities such as food, rent, and school fees. These families are suffering because their breadwinners have been unjustly incarcerated for merely attending a bray. This campaign is about showing solidarity and providing much-needed support to those affected by this injustice, as said one of the campaign organizers. The campaign has already begun to gain traction on social media, with many people expressing their outrage over the arrests and their support for the families. Donations have started to pour in, highlighting the community's willingness to come together in times of need. Human rights organizations and activists have also voiced their support for the campaign, calling on the government to release the Avondale 79 and respect the constitutional rights of its citizens. They argue that the arrests are part of a broader pattern of suppressing dissent and stifling freedom of assembly in the country. As the campaign continues, organizers hope to raise enough funds to make a significant impact on the lives of the affected families and encourage people to donate and share the campaign to ensure it reaches as many potential supporters as possible. That's all for tonight's news on Zimwaves TV. Thank you for tuning in. Stay with us for more updates and in-depth reports on these and other stories. Good night.
In the heart of the land where the sun always shines, we face many trials, we've walked many lines, but our strength is in numbers.